What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and we're going to do a non-gaming related video today. Now, I suppose technically whatever way you want to look at it is tangentially linked to gaming, but we're not really talking about that, and that's not the focus of this video at all. So, what I'm on about here in this video is we're going to talk a little bit about a controversy that's going on at the moment. I'm not going to go super into specifics, I'm not going to give exact quotes, exact stories about the whole allegations and whatnot, but it's... woo lad, buckle up. Anyway, why am I talking about this and why do I fit into this whole situation? Well, no, I'm not. This whole thing doesn't apply to me, don't worry. That would be kind of weird. But anyway, I am a big fan of, say, anime voice actors, game voice actors, just voice work in general. Not because it's something I'm personally interested in as like a job or a hobby or anything. I'm big fans of people who can bring these characters to life in these games, this anime, the TV shows, cartoons, whatever it is, that they can bring these characters to life, portray such emotion, such feeling, such whatever it is, and have such a big effect on us. And that's why I'm such a big fan of just we call it the industry in general. So anyway, let's go back to what we're talking about. There's a well-known voice actor at the moment. He's been well known for probably about 15 years at this point. And lately, a lot of people, because of him being thrust back into the spotlight as another high-profile release just came out, there's a lot of people fed up with him, and a lot of people are speaking out against him, and they have all these alleged stories and all these alleged incidents and all, from crazy things like sexual misconduct to harassment to God knows what. It gets downright bizarre. But anyway, what I'm talking about is Dragon Ball Broly, the latest film, the one launched here in 2019, and its lead character's English voice actor, Vic Mignogna. Now, Vic is a fairly prolific voice actor over the last 20 years or so in the industry, so chances are if you've played something or watched something in English, he's probably in one of your favorite games, one of your favorite anime, one of your favorite TV shows, whatever it is, because he voices so many people. Some of his biggest claims to fame, like I mentioned, are voicing Broly in a lot of the Dragon Ball stuff, as well as his huge, biggest one that pretty much the majority of people know him from, is voicing Edward Elric in Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Obviously, Full Metal Alchemist was the first one to come out, so that's where he really got the claim to fame. I know I personally enjoy him in, say, stuff like that, as well as Junpei Aori in Persona 3 FES, or just any version of Persona 3 really, which kind of annoys me because I forgot to get my Persona 3 copy signed by him, and I only remembered it later that day, and I was pissed off. Anyway, that's beside the point. We'll go back to what we're actually talking about. So many people are speaking out about Vic and his behavior, or his alleged behavior, I should say, over the last, well, some of these stories date back to 2008 is probably the earliest one I've seen. So it's not anything new where this has kind of happened. Like I mentioned a minute ago, I have met Vic once in real life, and funny enough, on that day, coming home from that Comic-Con with the friend of mine that I actually went with, I remember explaining to him about some of the current, not so much current, but some of the existing allegations and stories and claims made against him and whatnot. And, well, I'm not really surprised that something like this has come back up and has come back out. Not to name names as well, but I have been in several other panels with, say, different voice actors and stuff, and they have expressed... not by name, but they've pretty much they pretty much gave it in as much detail as possible without actually naming him. That they were very unhappy with some of his antics, that there was a lot of stories going around against him, that they were giving voice actors a bad name and things like that. Again, I'm not going to name any names to these voice actors, but it's kind of I won't say an industry secret or anything, but it's more so that it seems that there have been a number of people, both fans, professionals, other voice actors, whatever it is, that they've been very unhappy with him and some of his possibly real, possibly alleged, possibly whatever behavior and antics and whatnot because of, well, it's just given the community a bad name in general. So what I'm talking about anyway, I realize I've gone on for ages without going into all this detail, but I'm not going into super detail like I said, But this whole thing is there are a lot of claims of sexual misconduct, sexual harassment. There's even ones with like physical contact and what I suppose you could argue is like sexual assault in that way. It all depends. It's a very strange one, and obviously these terms are somewhat broad but somewhat specific at the same time, and I don't want to get into super detail on individual stories, but you have stories and you have people coming out and talking about all this, about how he can be very unprofessional sometimes, both in the studio and out of the studio, at conventions and stuff like that as well. And a lot of the people who will actually say these are other professionals, be it voice actors, producers, directors, whatever it is. Some of these people will just say, okay, it's acting, it's business, this is what happens, this is what this kind of thing actually happens and goes on. But there's a lot of other ones that are very, very, if true, very, very damning, and some of them are insane. Like there's ones about, like, say, physical touching. It's gonna sound really weird, but it sounds like we call it inappropriate touching of possibly underage fans while posing for pictures or whatever. I realize that in the situations like that, I'm not defending Vic, of course. I'll get into the details now in a minute, but I realize that in situations like that, we'll call them not so much fevers be running high or whatever, but it's more so, the energy of all the fans finally getting to meet him getting to meet and hang out with all his fans and whatnot. I'm sure the energy is running pretty high, and sometimes in the moment these things could possibly accidentally happen. Now, of course, that doesn't excuse the whole thing. I actually am going to go against him in this one in a little bit, because realistically he should be more aware of that. As an adult, I believe he's in his 40s, even when he kind of blew up from, say, Full Metal Alchemist about 10-15 years ago, he still would have been in his 30s, so he's still the adult mindset that could actually realize, okay, I have to be careful with what I'm doing here. So just to loop back around real quick anyway, like I said, a lot of these ones have been from, say, unprofessional behavior, being downright rude, not returning favors, etc., to really uncomfortable, really weird ones like, say, I just mentioned a moment ago. Or there's even some ones with alleged sexual activity and stuff too. And here is where the big problem with all this comes in, and this is where it's very divisive for most people. Not just a situation like this, but any real situation. It comes down to one divisive point, and as harsh and cold as it goes to say, and harsh as cold as it wants to sound when I say this, I'm a firm believer of evidence. Now, Here, I'm going to put a very big caveat with that. There's two little asterisks beside it, if you will. Or would it just be one? There are numbers, huge numbers, massive numbers of people coming out to talk about this, to talk about his behavior, his unprofessional behavior, his possibly, we'll call it like sexual dangerous behavior, including so many fans, both male, female, ones that were underage or overage at the time, other professionals like, say, producers, directors, fellow professional voice actors, cosplay artists, people who he's working with at a certain convention or a certain panel, the staff there, whatever it is. There are numerous versions of this. There are fairly high profile ones saying this, as well as just random people, and I'm not trying to take away from any random person who may have had something like this and obviously is very, very affected by this. Obviously something like this, as well as what would have happened, is very, very bad, and it's obviously extremely difficult and hurtful to you in many ways. Which brings me back to the point I mentioned a minute ago, as I am a big person for evidence. I'm not saying this in defense of Vic, I'm not saying this in defense of the potential victims, whatever it is. I'm a big fan of evidence, in the sense that literal proof is basically indisputable. But proper proof is actual proof, and proof is indisputable. That's why it's proof. That's why it's not just evidence or a claim or an exhibit or whatever it is. Actual proof, outside of all these stories, all these anecdotal evidences, all these little accounts, is why I can't hate on Vic right now, and I can't get behind what's going on as the hashtag Kick Vic movement. Now, should all this turn out to be true and there be evidence of this kind of stuff, that it was done maliciously or whatever, or that just some of it was done at all because some of it is very bad, I would absolutely get behind that movement. because that is not something I want to see in one of my favorite industries, and in something that I feel that I have a lot of interest and a lot of fun following, examining, whatever it is. And the reason why that sounds so harsh and so cold is that people out there, the people who have been possibly victimized or have all this happen to them and obviously be very hurtful and traumatic for them the entire time, is I don't want to downplay what has possibly happened to these people. Obviously, if this did happen and these things did actually happen to those people, it's a horrible thing to deal with. I could only imagine how much pain and suffering that could cause to so many people. I know a lot of people, especially in 2019 now, will run to the believe victims mantra that goes around when stuff like this comes up, and I want to believe you. That's the best way I can say it. I don't want to believe you in the sense that I want to go against Vic. I don't want to defend Vic. Again, I'm a big fan of evidence. I don't want to downplay what would have happened to you. I don't want to downplay the possibility that could happen to you just because it could be someone that I potentially like or potentially enjoy or whatever. I'm open to the idea that this could possibly and potentially have happened. I just need proof to believe it. One thing leaning towards Vic's favor ever so slightly is if this has been going on for as long as everyone says, which is over a decade now, and there's not one shred of proper physical evidence, despite the numerous stories, that's not a good look for the people accusing Vic. Again, I'm not a massive fan of his despite this possibly sounding like that, but you could put almost anyone in this situation, and my feelings on it would be the same way. So just to round out the video real quick, we'll have a very brief recap. Longtime voice actor Vic Mignogna has been accused of multiple different forms of misconduct over the last decade plus, including inappropriate physical contact with both male and female guests, underage and overage, as well as some questionable sexual behaviour with other colleagues, adults, voice actors, whatever it is, and overall rudeness, unprofessional behaviour. All these allegations have been made so far. As far as I'm aware, there is zero actual empirical evidence against him, but we'll see how all this goes. In fact, Rooster Teeth, the company behind RWBY, have actually parted ways with him over this whole scandal, despite having, again, no actual physical evidence. I haven't watched the show myself, but I hear he's part of it, and is officially going to be replaced. Now I will give one little small anecdote just as we round out the video, and that is my little encounter with Vic. Again, I said at the start of the video, this is not a situation like this. I met Vic back in 2017 here in Ireland in Dublin Comic Con, well actually one of the Comic Cons in Dublin, not specifically Dublin Comic Con. And I have to say, from what I witnessed, there was no types of behaviour like that. I realise it's a very small sample and time frame, but I will say this, the time I spent talking to him for a few minutes was very fun, very enjoyable. He seemed like a pretty cool dude. There was absolutely nothing inappropriate. He signed my Full Metal Alchemist. We had a little chat about other voice actors, Full Metal Alchemist, some of the other stuff he'd worked on, a little bit about himself in general. And I had no seeming problems with any of the stuff that was going on at the time, as well as the people in front of me while I was actually queuing up, as well as some of the people behind me because I was still in the general area after I'd met him. There seemed to be no problems whatsoever, and overall everyone that seemed to have met him at the time came away seemingly impressed with positive attitudes. And I will say this, some of the people in those queues ahead and behind me were very attractive female cosplayers in very, let's call it questionable, well, some of them very questionable cosplay. So if anything, you think something like that would elicit a response. Anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you think of the whole situation. Have you got an experience with Vic, both normal or one of these alleged ones in question? Do you think he's guilty based on his previous history, or like myself, do you just require facts? Are you a huge fan of his? Do you hate his guts? Are you part of the Kick Vic movement? Or what's the deal? Let me know all of that in the comment section below. Hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not go on over and hit that subscribe button. Let's get those numbers up to 850 for that 100% blind Dark Souls 3 playthrough that I know everyone's clamoring for, and let's get them up to 1,000 as well for that promised game room tour. While you're at it, why not ring the little notification bell? Although granted, getting a notification from YouTube in current year about a live stream or video upload or whatever it is a whole other story. But hey, at least you can say you tried, am I right? As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.